Hold up, so we all know Mufasa dies, right? But the question is, what the hell happens to his body after he dies? I mean, hyenas don't typically eat lions, and there aren't a lot of animals that do. Except, of course, other lions. So, let's take another look at this scene. Is that... No way. Did Scar... Welcome to DisneyTube, the channel that thrives on questioning the most beloved Disney movies of all time in ways you never expected. And speaking of expectations, I'd love for you to smash that subscribe button because, unlike Scar, I don't plan on overthrowing a kingdom. I just want that sweet, sweet algorithm boost. Now, The Lion King is one of the most celebrated animated films of all time. It's simple, effective, and doesn't waste a single second on unnecessary plot threads. That's part of why it holds up so well. It's a tight, emotional narrative without all the extra fluff. But when a movie is that streamlined, it doesn't leave a lot of room for theorizing. Or at least, that's what you'd think. Enter the internet where no stone, or in this case, no skull, goes unturned. Recently, a theory has been making the rounds online, suggesting that The Lion King has a disturbingly dark detail hiding in plain sight. And no, I'm not talking about subliminal messages in the dust. What I'm talking about is a theory that Scar may have done something far worse than just killing Mufasa. He may have actually eaten him. Yeah, let that sink in. This all started when TikTokers Classy King Zero and Not Alexis LOL pointed out something unsettling in the movie. We all know that after Mufasa's tragic fall during the wildebeest stampede, Scar convinces Simba that it's his fault and tells him to run away. The last time we see Mufasa's body, Scar is standing next to it. The next thing we know, Scar goes back to Pride Rock, declares himself king, and somehow there's no body left to be found. Now, in the real animal kingdom, lions don't typically eat other lions, but, and this is a big but, when food is scarce, they have been known to turn to cannibalism, particularly when a new male takes over a pride and kills the previous leader. It's not common, but it happens. And Scar? Well, he's desperate for power. He's not exactly getting a fresh meal from the barren Pride lands, and he has no problem bending the rules of nature to get what he wants. But here's where things get really creepy. Later in the movie, there's a scene where Scar is playing with a skull, and not just any skull, a skull that looks an awful lot like a lion's. Now, unless Scar has a very macabre taste in collectibles, that's a pretty strange thing to have lying around. Lions, unlike hyenas, don't typically leave behind bones in this fashion. So whose skull is it? Could it be Mufasa's? Let's break this down scientifically. A lion's skull has a very distinct shape, wide nasal cavity, pronounced canines, and a structure that doesn't resemble many other animals in the savannah. And wouldn't you know it, the skull Scar is toying with in that scene fits that description pretty well. So either Scar just so happened to find a lion skull lying around, or he kept Mufasa's remains as some kind of twisted trophy. Neither option is exactly comforting. And if you think this is just some crazy internet theory with no basis in reality, think again. The filmmakers themselves have given us some hints that might actually support this idea. In the original script for The Lion King, there's a deleted scene where Scar keeps Mufasa's bones in his den. That's right, the Disney animators considered making it canon that Scar had Mufasa's remains right there with him the whole time. While the scene was ultimately scrapped, it gives us some insight into just how dark they were willing to go with his character. But let's take it one step further. If Scar did eat Mufasa, that would explain why we never see his body. It would also align with the themes of The Lion King itself, an animal kingdom ruled by the cycle of life and death, where only the strongest survive. Scar, who sees himself as the ultimate ruler, may have believed that consuming Mufasa was the final step in truly claiming his throne. It's twisted, it's disturbing, and it's exactly the kind of detail that makes a classic movie even more unsettling when you really think about it. But we're not done yet. There's another angle to consider: the real-life inspiration behind Scar's character. Many have drawn parallels between Scar and historical figures known for their ruthlessness. Leaders who didn't just overthrow their rivals, but also symbolically or literally destroyed any trace of them. Throughout history, there have been accounts of conquerors consuming parts of their enemies to absorb their strength. Could Scar's actions be a nod to this dark practice? Let's not forget the Shakespearean roots of The Lion King. It's widely known that the movie takes inspiration from Hamlet, a story filled with betrayal, murder, and madness. In Hamlet, there are multiple references to bodies being disposed of in gruesome ways. Scar's potential act of cannibalism could be Disney's way of subtly reinforcing this connection. After all, if you're already making a kid-friendly version of one of the most tragic plays in history, why not slip in a little extra horror for the adults paying attention? And then there's the hyenas. We're led to believe that Scar has them do most of his dirty work. But what if they were involved in covering up Mufasa's fate? In the wild, hyenas are scavengers, but they're also strategic. If Scar convinced them that getting rid of Mufasa's body was in their best interest, they might have been more than willing to assist. It adds another layer to their complicated relationship, one that's built on mutual benefit but also on a shared dark secret. Now, with all that said, some people argue that this was not a lion's skull at all, but actually a baboon's. Some have pointed out that the skull Scar is playing with has features that resemble those of a baboon, such as the more elongated snout and different jaw structure. If this were the case, it would raise the question of whose skull it actually was. Some speculate that it could have belonged to Rafiki's kind, perhaps even an old acquaintance of his. This theory suggests that rather than being a nod to Mufasa, the skull could be there as a general symbol of Scar's disregard for life, showing that he will toy with the remains of any creature he deems inferior. Whether this alternative theory holds any weight is up for debate, but it does at least offer another possible explanation for that eerie scene. Of course, this is all speculation, but whether or not Scar actually ate Mufasa, one thing is clear. The Lion King isn't as lighthearted as you remember. So, the next time you watch, pay close attention to Scar's den. You might just see something you wish you hadn't. So, what do you think? Did Scar actually eat Mufasa, or is this just another internet theory gone wild? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.